Welcome to the deep dive. Have you ever been on a team doing all the agile things like daily stand-ups, sprints planned out, Jira board looking perfect, but it still feels like you're just marching through some huge year-long plan with absolutely no wiggle room?
Oh, absolutely. That feeling is incredibly common, frustratingly so. Teams get really diligent, implementing the practices.
Right.
But that promise of flexibility, getting feedback quickly, actually building what the customer needs,
Yeah.
it just, well, doesn't seem to materialize.
Exactly. And that's what we're diving into today, that disconnect. Why does it happen? You look agile, but you feel waterfall. Our mission really is to get to the bottom of this thing people sometimes call Agile Theater.
Yeah, Agile Theater. It's a good term for it, actually. Captures it perfectly. You've got the performance, right? The ceremonies, the roles. Looks like Agile. But underneath, the mindset, the core ideas, and definitely the results. They're still stuck in that old waterfall way.
Okay, so let's really dig into that, this agile in name only idea. What does it actually look like on the ground? What are the signs?
Well, on the surface, it looks pretty good. You'd see the team using the toolkit. They've got a backlog. They slice work into stories, supposedly. They run sprints, often, 2 weeks.
Standard stuff.
Totally standard. You'd see the daily stand-ups, the planning meetings, the reviews, even retrospectives. They might even be shipping code regularly, say, every couple of weeks.
So if I just walk past, I'd think, yep, that's an agile team. But what's that feeling then, that nagging waterfall feeling? Where does that come from?
That comes from the rigidity underneath it all. Despite those short sprints, you often find these big, immovable delivery dates for major features.
Set months ago, probably.
Exactly. The scope was locked down way back then, almost zero flexibility. And crucial feedback, from actual users or stakeholders. It lands way too late.
So late, you can't really do anything about it without blowing everything up.
Precisely.
Yeah.
It gets really hard, really expensive to actually use that feedback. And there's this constant pressure, this rush to hit those old deadlines no matter what you've learned along the way.
Oh, okay. So even though they're delivering in chunks, the chunks are just steps on a path decided ages ago. Any deviation is like a catastrophe.
You got it. It's like taking that huge waterfall plan and just, chopping it into 2-week blocks. The inflexibility is still baked right in.
Right. So the whole point of Agile, the learning, the adapting, that gets lost.
Completely lost. Instead of using a sprint to learn and adjust, these teams are just marching, following that original plan, hoping desperately their initial guesses were right.
Which they probably made with like half the information they needed.
Often, yes. So it feels like waterfall because, honestly, in the ways that matter, resisting change, delaying feedback, it is waterfall, just with Agile label stuck on top.
Okay, so where does it really go wrong? What's the fundamental clash between doing the Agile practices and holding on to that waterfall thinking?
Well, a really big failure point is often how sprint planning happens. Instead of seeing sprints as chances to discover and adapt, they turn into those mini waterfalls you mentioned. Everything for the next 2 weeks gets planned out, locked down, committed to on day one.
Wow, okay. So zero flexibility baked in.
Minimal, if any. There's just no space left to react to new information or shift priorities if something urgent comes up or even act on feedback you get during the sprint.
It's like they took the big upfront planning from Waterfall and just do it every 2 weeks instead. The commitment is to that sprint plan, not to being responsive.
Exactly that. And a lot of this, it comes from pressure from leadership. Often there's still that deep-seated organizational craving for the old waterfall comforts.
Like fixed timelines and predictable answers right at the start.
Precisely. That desire for upfront certainty, it pushes teams, even the ones trying Agile, to sacrifice real agility. They build these detailed plans to create an illusion of predictability.
Even if those plans are based on shaky assumptions.
Right. Because the leadership wants the plan, the date.
So the underlying company operating system, if you like, is still waterfall, even if the teams are using Agile apps.
That's a great way to put it. And it really highlights a massive misunderstanding of what Agile is actually for. Yes, speed can be a benefit, but the real power, the core strength,
It's adaptability.
it's adaptability, the ability to react smartly, to change, to learn, to iterate, to adjust course so you actually deliver the most value in the end, not just deliver the original plan fast.
Okay, that makes sense. We've set the stage, understanding the theory behind Agile Theater. But theories are one thing. Let's make it concrete. Can we walk through maybe 1 or 2 real-world examples? Show the difference between that theater version and how a truly agile team works.
Definitely. Let's take 2 really common scenarios. rolling out a big new software feature, and running a marketing campaign.
Perfect. Let's start with the software feature. Big new capability needed. How does this play out in Agile Theater land?
Okay, so in the theater version, leadership probably says, we need this feature by Q3, no excuses. That's the starting gun.
Right. Fixed date from the top.
Yep. So the team dives into weeks, maybe months, of detailed requirements, gathering huge documents. Then comprehensive design specs. Everything has to be defined up front.
Which leads to?
Leads to a scope that's totally locked down, and that fixed delivery date feeling carved in stone.
Okay, the classic big upfront design. Then they start coding.
Then they break it all down into sprints. 2 weeks, usually. And they religiously follow the Scrum rituals, stand-ups, planning, reviews, retros. Looks very Scrum-like.
But,
and this is key, each sprint is its own little waterfall. All the tasks for those 2 weeks, planned, committed, locked on day one. There's this unspoken rule almost. Don't change the sprint plan.
So the daily stand-up isn't really about adapting. It's just status updates against the fixed mini-plan.
Pretty much. Did you finish task A? Are you on track for task B? Now, what happens when reality hits?
Like user feedback?
Exactly. Maybe after a few sprints, user testing shows a key part of the design is confusing. Or, oops, a competitor just launched something similar but better, and you really need to pivot.
Uh-oh. And in Agile Theater, that's a crisis.
Huge crisis. The team feels totally boxed in by that fixed plan, that locked scope, changing direction mid-sprint. Massive hesitation. Resistance.
You hear things like, but we committed, or the requirements were signed off.
All the time. So that it's really valuable but late arriving feedback. It basically gets ignored or pushed to phase 2 because dealing with it now would disrupt the plan, risk the deadline, cause panic.
So the team just feels like they're executing orders, marching towards a target set before they really understood the problem or the market. They're doing the agile motions, but it feels rigid. Delivering the output feature on time becomes the goal, not the outcome of actually solving the user's problem well.
That is textbook Agile Theater. The rituals are there, but the adaptive mindset is missing. They fail that mirror test. We can talk more about later changing priorities mid-sprint causes chaos. The focus is all on outputs, like shipping features, not outcomes, like solving problems.
Okay, crystal clear picture of the theater. Now, flip the coin, same big software feature. How does a truly agile team tackle it?
Right. A truly agile team starts differently. They focus first on deeply understanding the problem to solve. What's the real user need? What's the desired outcome?
Less about the final polished feature, more about the core value.
Exactly. They work closely with stakeholders to figure out the smallest, most valuable piece they can deliver first. Just the critical bit.
Get something real out there quickly.
That's the aim. So detailed planning. They only do that for the first sprint. Future sprints are left more open, more flexible. The commitment isn't to a fixed scope and date months away.
It's to
making progress, learning, and delivering that first valuable increment. Maybe it's a basic prototype, maybe just one key user flow, but something real, built fast.
And then crucially, what happens after they deliver that first bit?
Then they get it in front of real customers. Immediately. They actively seek out feedback. And based on what they learn from users, from the act of building it, they adapt the plan for the next sprint.
So feedback is actively steering the ship, not rocking the boat.
Absolutely. And if critical feedback or a market shift happens mid-sprint, they talk about it openly. Because they expect to learn and adapt, they can actually adjust priorities during the sprint if the new information is important enough. Maybe they swap out a lower value task. It shows real adaptability in thinking and collaboration.
It sounds, well, maybe messier from the outside, more dynamic.
It can feel that way, sure, because you're constantly course correcting based on new data. But that's the point. You're making sure you build the right thing, not just the thing you thought was right at the start. The focus stays laser sharp on the outcome.
Okay, so the real difference is embracing change, learning constantly, delivering value early, using feedback. It's about the mindset, the collaboration, the response.
Got it. Let's switch gears to the marketing campaign. How does Agile Theater play out there?
Okay, marketing campaign, Agile Theater style. You'd likely see a massive upfront planning effort, weeks spent defining every target audience, nuance, crafting every message, picking every channel, blogs, social ads, emails.
Locking it all down.
Totally. Exact launch dates for everything. Budget allocated precisely per channel, specific content mapped out, feels very thorough, very planned, locked in.
Right. A traditional marketing plan, essentially.
Yeah.
Where does the Agile part come in? supposedly.
Well, they might use a Kanban board to track the tasks. Write post A, schedule add B, code email C, looks modern, visual. And they might have daily stand-ups where everyone reports progress on their assigned tasks from the big plan.
So using the tools, having the meetings. But where's the disconnect? When does it break down? It breaks down when the real-world data starts coming in mid-campaign. The analytics show the blog posts aren't getting traction, or the cost per lead on those social ads is way too high.
Okay, so the plan isn't working as expected. In the Agile Theater version, what happens now?
Because everything was planned and approved up front, the team often just keeps going. They stick to the original plan, even with data showing it's ineffective.
Keep writing blog posts nobody reads. Keep pouring money into ads that aren't converting.
Sadly, yes. The focus stays on completing the tasks on the board, the outputs not on achieving the actual goal, like getting qualified leads efficiently, the outcome.
So they're checking boxes, reporting progress and stand-ups, but not actually adapting based on results, suggesting a change must feel like admitting failure.
Exactly. Changing course feels like a huge disruption. It means going back for approvals. It feels like breaking the initial commitment. The whole process feels rigid, unresponsive to the very data that should be guiding them.
So again, agile tools and practices, but with a fixed waterfall mindset underneath, committed to the plan, not the outcome.
Precisely. No adaptability to the real-time data. Now contrast that with a truly agile marketing team.
Okay, how would they approach the same campaign?
They'd start by defining the desired outcome very clearly. Say, generate 500 qualified leads from this audience this quarter at under X dollars per lead. The focus is squarely on the business result.
Goal first, activity second.
Exactly. Then, instead of a massive plan, they brainstorm initial experiments. What are our best guesses, our hypotheses about channels and messages for the first iteration?
Approaching it like scientists, testing ideas.
Pretty much. They launch small tests quickly and watch the results like hawks, continuously monitoring. Their stand-ups and reviews aren't just about task status.
They're about learning.
Yes. What did we learn from this week's experiments? What worked, what didn't, why?
So the conversation is totally different.
Completely. And when the data shows something isn't working, they adapt immediately. Stop the ineffective stuff, double down on what is working, maybe try completely new ideas based on what they're learning.
Sounds much more dynamic and, well, intelligent.
It is. The planning is iterative. They adjust activities based on real-time feedback, always focused on hitting that outcome through learning and adaptation. It's like you said earlier, like cooking based on taste tests. You're constantly checking, refining, prioritizing learning, being adaptable, responsive to the market, always asking, are we solving the real problem here?
Okay, so the big takeaway from both examples is stark. True agility isn't just about having stand-ups or using Jira. It's fundamentally a mindset. It's about the ability, the willingness to inspect and adapt based on feedback and learning.
Exactly. Having the tools and rituals means nothing if the underlying thinking is still rigid, predictive, and resistant to change. It's the mindset, the embrace of change, the focus on outcomes that makes the difference.
Right. So for listeners out there who are maybe nodding along, recognizing their own teams in the Agile Waterfall description, what can they actually do? What are some concrete steps to start moving towards real agility?
Okay, good question. There are a few key things. First, and this is huge, shift the focus from outputs to outcomes. Constantly ask, are we just shipping features? Or are we solving a real user problem? Are we just completing tasks? Or are we achieving the business result we aim for?
That's a big mental shift right there. What's next?
Second, make planning iterative, not absolute. Resist that urge to lock everything down upfront. Plan just enough to get going, with a clear direction, yes, but plan to learn and adapt based on feedback.
Accept uncertainty. Plan to adjust. Makes sense.
Exactly. Third, think about how you frame commitment. Instead of committing to fixed scope and dates set in stone.
Commit to.
Commit to making progress towards the outcome, and commit to learning and adapting, and communicate that understanding of commitment clearly to everyone, especially stakeholders.
That requires managing expectations, particularly with leadership, I imagine.
It certainly does, which leads to number 4. Get customers or users involved frequently, like really frequently. Get their feedback early, get it often, and actually use it to shape the work. That direct line is invaluable. Okay. And number 5, fifth, and this is crucial, educate leadership. Help them understand that Agile's real power isn't just hitting arbitrary deadlines with fixed plans faster. It's about delivering better value through adaptability. Show them the benefits of flexibility, of reducing wasted effort on the wrong things.
So it's a multi-pronged approach, really. Changing daily habits, planning differently, engaging users, and managing upwards.
It is. It takes conscious effort to move away from that old waterfall muscle memory and build a culture that genuinely values learning, flexibility, and adaptation.
You mentioned a mirror test earlier. Can you circle back to that as maybe a quick check for listeners?
Yeah, the mirror test is pretty simple, actually. Ask yourself or observe your team. If we needed to change priorities mid-sprint, maybe because of critical feedback or a market shift, what would happen?
And the reaction tells you.
If the reaction is significant anxiety, pushback, maybe even panic, a feeling of chaos, then you're probably not truly agile. A genuinely agile team has the capacity to absorb that change, discuss it, and adapt relatively smoothly.
That's a really neat practical check. It hammers home the point again. It's not the tools, not the meetings. It's the thinking, the collaboration, the response to change.
Exactly, that fundamental adaptability.
Yeah.
And look, the good news here, the empowering part, is that the shift towards true agility doesn't require some massive overnight revolution. It can start small, today, with changes in conversations and decisions and mindset.
Okay, so wrapping up our deep dive today, we've really contrasted just doing agile, following the practices, with truly being agile. And the core difference lies in that mindset shift.
Yeah.
Adaptability, learning, focusing on outcomes, not just outputs.
That's really the heart of it. We hope that resonates with you, the listener. The agile tools, the frameworks, they're helpful guides. But the real magic, the transformation, happens when a team changes how it thinks, how it works together, and how it responds to the unavoidable uncertainty of building valuable things.
Absolutely. And if this discussion struck a chord with you, maybe you've lived through Agile Theater, we'd genuinely love to hear your story. What did it feel like? What did you learn? Connect with us. Share your insights. And hey, what other challenges or questions around agility are on your mind? Let us know what you'd like us to tackle in a future deep dive.
Yeah, your feedback, your suggestions are incredibly helpful for us. We really believe that sharing our experiences, the good and the bad, helps us all get better at finding truly effective, genuinely agile ways of working together.
Well said. And our final thought for you today is this. Real agility starts with awareness. If you can't honestly see the gap between how agile you look and how agile you are, it's really hard to start making meaningful changes. So maybe take a moment, reflect on your team, your projects. Are you really living agility or perhaps just performing it? Thanks for diving deep with us today.